SEBI says 91.1% of all F&O traders lose money, and the average loss is 1.2 lakh rupees per person. But my question is, why? Is trading actually gambling? So we spoke to a bunch of traders.
The reason why I call this a scam is because I lost
1.7 CR in the first 3-4 years.
60-70 lakhs.
उसके बाद एक ही दिन में ऐसा हुआ कि मेरा पूरा कैपिटल वाइप आउट हो गया.
And we looked at all the data to distill it into 5 reasons why trading is possibly gambling. So let's start with the first reason, dopamine addiction. This is Rahul. He started F&O trading at the peak of the bull market in 2023. Why? Very simple. Look at this chart. It moves so much, all he has to do is capture a couple of rupees and he can make a lot of money. And he does. He buys Bank Nifty right here and sells it right here within an hour. And he made a cool 5,000 rupees. Now, to put this into perspective, this guy makes 20,000 rupees a month from his salary. And here he just made 5,000 with some basic analysis. I mean, this is magic. You see, greed has no end. So he starts trading more and more, winning more and more, losing more and more. And this time it's a net loss, but he doesn't stop because he thinks he can make it. After all, he made money last month, right? In fact, the SEBI chief said they have anecdotal information that people are borrowing money from friends, family, even mortgaging their houses to trade more in the derivative segment. That's how addictive this game is.
तो मैंने इनिशियली मेरे सिस्टर से पैसे लिए थे. 3:30 बजे तक तो मैं हिलता ही नहीं था स्क्रीन से. उसके बाद मैं अपना काम निपटाता था.
when you're putting in like 4 lakhs into one trade, you forget about everything else, right? It's like you forget about family, you forget about everything else. This is all there is.
So the question is this: why don't they just hit the brakes and stop if they see that they're losing money? And the answer is an interesting experiment happened a while back. In the 1950s, an American psychologist conducted a really sick experiment. He took a group of mice and put them in water to see how long they would try to swim before giving up and drowning. The first group did this for about 15 minutes before they gave up. But the second group was actually rescued just before they gave up, briefly rested, they were dried and put back in the water. And this group of mice ended up swimming for 60 hours. They thought they'll eventually be rescued just like last time, and they continued to swim for their lives. We are just like these mice. Those small profits we make in the market, they make us think that one day we'll hit it big. And it's this hope that creates the seed for gambling. I have some stats here. I can see in FY24, with an income of less than 5 lakh, 92.2% of people lost about 65,000 rupees each. And people with income between 5 and 25 lakh, 88.3% people lost money, an average of 1.52 lakhs. But the question is, what makes these people even think in the first place that they can make money from options? Which brings us to the second reason, online influence, selling greed. During COVID, a lot of influencers started promoting and selling the idea that you can make money from options sitting at home. आइए चलो देखते हैं 1 करोड़ कैसे कमाना है. बताइए जी कैसे करना चाहिए. 920 पे खरीदना है ऑप्शन आपको. 5 रुपए पे, 5.70 पे नहीं, 5 रुपए पे. ठीक है, फिर क्या करना है? दिमाग ज्यादा नहीं लगाना है दोस्तों. डिसिप्लिन का खेल है, या मार्केट है, शेयर बाजार. And they convinced you by showing their trading account of how much money they made in just a few hours on that day. In some of these videos, they talk about how you can make crores of rupees. All you have to do is follow their style. This, by the way, is not education. This is called selling greed. Education is when you talk about options, explain what they are, and there's a full stop to it. The moment you start selling the end result, it becomes something entirely different.
F&O का मैंने वीडियोस देखे थे YouTube के ऊपर कि एक इंसान ने मतलब 10,000 डाले और एक ही दिन में उसने मतलब 10,000 के 16,000 बना दिए.
In 2020, the internet actually fueled all of this. With the rise of eKYC, you could now open an account online without those lengthy forms. And because everyone was sitting at home watching all these videos, the excitement for the market was high. Everyone opened accounts. And because of all of these factors, today in 2025, we have 45 lakh active derivative traders, up from about 7 lakh traders in 2019. Now, what lures people into option trading specifically is that the maximum loss is the amount you invest when you actually buy an option contract. And the unlimited profit is what lures them into the greed side. So they think by investing just a few thousand rupees, they can actually make a lot of money. But unlike stock trading, which is equally tougher, in options you also have to worry about other things outside of direction, like all these Greeks. These are things newbie traders have no idea about. Trading, like any other skill, requires a tremendous amount of effort. It requires time, skill, energy. People don't want to do that. So here's what they do.
उसके बाद फिर ये फेज आया कि यार अब तो मेरे से तो कुछ नहीं हो रहा, एक काम करते कि प्रोफेशनल हेल्प लेते किसी से, तो मैंने टेलीग्राम के ग्रुप्स ज्वाइन किए.
Which brings us to reason number 3, stock tips. Stock tips is a huge industry in India, but it's totally a scam. Let me explain how it works.
Now, there is person X. Person X is asking Urvish to buy and Nishant to sell. Call options and put options for the same bloody exact same instrument, right? And what these guys are doing is, या तो Urvish मुझे पैसे देगा या निशांत देगा. And that's when I realized that holy shit, I'm getting properly scammed, right?
And it's not just Telegram groups. We also have influencers around the world and in India who talk about particular stocks. For example, this really famous influencer talked about a particular small cap stock, which I also had never heard about. And he said he added it to his portfolio and it's good in the short term. This stock went all the way up and no surprises, it then crashed. This is called a pump and dump, where the person bought it in advance, told his followers about it, exited, and made a quick buck at the expense of all of us. But this doesn't mean all influencers are bad. It just means if someone popular is trying to sell you greed, you should be aware. And this brings us to our 4th reason. The odds are not in your favor. There are only 2 kinds of players which actually make money in this market. These are foreign portfolio investors or proprietary traders. For example, let's look at the About Us page of a really famous quantitative hedge fund located abroad. The firm boasts 90 PhDs in mathematics, physics, computer science, and other areas. We also have really accomplished individuals. A MacArthur Fellow, a fellowship literally known as the Genius Grant. They have members of the National Academy of Sciences and authors widely cited in scientific papers. So you have all these bright minds creating algorithms or a list of instructions to decide when to buy and sell stock with technology you probably don't have access to, and actually make a lot of money. And the data shows this as well. We can see all these 3 players. We have FPIs, 81% of them use algorithms. Proprietary traders, 55% use some kind of algorithm. And then we have individuals where only 13% of them use algorithms. Now what's interesting, 96 to 97% were generated through an algorithmic source. Basically, you're saying most of the profit in F&O is generated through an algorithm. And these algorithms, most of them are used by foreign portfolio investors.
You're like an ant who's going into the ocean and saying that, I'll kill the whale. I mean, you don't even know what a whale looks like.
Don't you think the odds are really against you if you're trading based on a Telegram group, or you just feel like the market will go up because, you drew a pattern on a chart? But wait, there is some good news. There are certain traders who are individuals not using algorithms who are probably making money, right? I mean, it can't be no one. I have that data as well. And it says 1% of individual F&O traders made a profit of 1 lakh rupees or more after accounting for the transaction costs, because the transaction costs actually amount to a lot.
अगर मैं पूरा आपको बताऊंगा तो almost सिर्फ 1 lakh plus तो सिर्फ मेरे charges ही है इधर.
If the best of the best out of all of these traders in F&O, the top 1% is earning 1 lakh rupees, is it even worth your time for it to be pursued? The stock market is a net positive gain, which means that people and value actually increases as more participation happens, but for long-term equity. But when we talk about something like F&O, that's a completely different game. F&O is a zero-sum game where someone has to lose money for someone else to make money. which means when you are trading, you're basically saying these guys who have algorithms and all these smart people working for them, you will take money off the table from them and transfer it to you. The chances of that is a little low, which means that the odds of you investing really long term and making wealth is much, much higher. Forget about options. Here are the real two options. On one side, you have low probability, and the stats prove it, your stress proves it, that this is really hard to do. And on the other side, we have equity as an asset class which is outperformed over the long term for a really long time. But the tough thing here is it just requires a lot of patience. This is the real option, the real choice you need to make right now. Do you select the red pill or the blue pill?